Hi, my name is Nujum. This is part 2 of my Grand Tournament card review. So a few things. One, again, the websites have been like really weird about what cards are being announced and what cards are like being theoretically announced, what cards are announced in different regions. So for the sake of my reviews, I'm going to stick with the hold on, where's the cards? Oh, I have it. Here we go. Okay. I don't know why they didn't. I'm sticking with the Hearthstone website, which is a website I use a lot. If you don't know what Hearthstone is, check it out. It's a pretty solid website. That's where I'm getting all the cards up here in the Grand Tourney, new cards. The overview will talk about the Inspire mechanic. If you want to check that out, go ahead. So that's the first announcement. Second announcement, keeping this background because I think it sort of fits the Grand Tourney feel. Third announcement, and this is kind of something I want to do for the rest of the videos, bang. These are all the cards I want to talk about. I want to try and keep it limited so I'm not just talking randomly for an hour. And I've sort of kind of prepared for what I want to say for most of these. Some of these I just don't have a lot to say. I just don't think some of these are very interesting. But hey, if there's a card you really want my input on, hopefully click on it and the annotation will take you to where I talk about it. This is the first time I'm doing this, so forgive me if like I mess something up somewhere. Hopefully not. I think it's easy enough. I know how the annotation system works. I just need to get it down pat. So yeah, go ahead, click on one, and let's go. Also, I have my Hearthstone client, so this should be interesting. Let's start with the first card, which is, of course, if I scroll down here, Wilfred Fizzlebang, and also I have all the other cards. For reference, you know, in case you missed some, these are all the cards on Hearthstone, of course. Wilfred Fizzlebang, a lot of people have been really excited about this legendary, and I'm so meh about it. Like, yeah, it can be insane, but like 4 health is just so easy to kill now. Especially at like 6 mana, like you just play Argent Commander and this guy dies. It's one of those cards that that needs to survive one turn really to really get value out of it. And it's kind of rare to see that happening. Again, the value of cards with taunt, the value of cards which protect your Inspire minions, protect your Wilfred Fizzlebang goes up. But I don't know if it's enough. You know, to put cards like that and Wilfred Fizzlebang, it could be really fun, definitely. If I ever get it, I'm definitely gonna mess around with it and be like, yeah, Master Summoner, woo! I'm not expecting too much. Like, you really want this to work in a high-end deck, and what's the RNG that you're gonna draw a high-end card? Actually, probably pretty good, considering if you play this card, you're gonna play a lot of this card to get the highlight reel, but we'll see how it works. I'm not expecting too much. Next up, we're going to talk about Flameland. Steal 8 damage to a minion. Whoa, mages are getting spells. OP, OP, OP. Actually, let's talk about that. So mages right now have a lot of cards that interact really well with spells. Between Flame Waker, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mana Worm. Giving mages another spell is really risky. But not giving them a spell would kind of defy the identity of the mage, right? It's like, hey, I cast spells. This is what I do. So it's interesting that they would even choose to make another spell, but they kind of have to just because of how card games need to expand, right? So this gives mages a lot of power. It's a very consistent card, deal 8 damage. It's a high impact card, sure. Not sure how much it's going to do against aggro. Certainly it's not going to help you race aggro, which is one of the good ways of beating aggro, is just to kill them before they kill you, if that makes sense. A cool card, I say that. I like the targeting a minion aspect, because that's kind of the fun part of Hearthstone, right? The board control aspect, the tempo swings, the crazy RNG, that's what you play Hearthstone for, right? And this sort of pushes that on, but I don't see how it would fit into any of the decks that I want to build, and so I'm kind of hesitant to say anything about it. Clockwork Knight, this one I am actually excited for. Believe it or not, this is one of the cards I was really hoping came out in the Grand Tournament expansion, because Mechs right now have a very aggro-heavy playstyle, and that's because all of the mech cards are very low-costing. Mech Warper, Micro Machine, Annoyotron. They're not all necessarily designed to be aggro. They're all designed to be very controlling cards. But the problem is we don't have any like 5-6 mana mechs that are good, that are in good classes, that we would really use for a mid-range control mech deck, right? Like Force Tank Max just doesn't see play straight up because, well, when you're building a mech deck, you're probably going to be including 2 Fireball, 2 Frostbolt, 2 of the Goblin Blast Mage. You might even include Flame Cannon, you might include Mana Worm, you might just include, I don't know, Arcane Golem, because why not, right? And so having a mid-rangey mech, by the way, 5 mana 5/5 is really solid. Give a friendly mech +1/+1, OP, right? It's just a solid mech card that's in the later game, and that's really what I wanted out of this expansion. I'm really excited to be playing something other than aggro mech, right? It's gonna be more fun with this card. All right, Holy Champion, holy, this is a powerful card. In Priest, people don't realize that Priest, the thing about Shadow Boxer, in fact, let's go ahead and use this for once. Let's talk about Priest. Priest right now is in a bit of a weak state at the higher play. Now in my rank, which is like rank 16, we see a bunch of Priests, and we see Priest do some crazy stuff, because Priest is actually a really fun class, as it turns out. Now, there was always this archetype for Priest called like Healing, that was like based around healing, where you would have 2 Alkanai, 2 Circle of Healing, 2 Light of the Naru, you would have, you know, your Northshire, you would have the Injured Blade Master, you wouldn't run Dark Cultist because you wouldn't need it, and you would try to focus on healing minions. Oh, and this was a deck that included Shadow Boxer. It was made at the beginning of GVG to try and experiment with Shadow Boxer, and it didn't see play because, as it turns out, at the beginning of the game, you're really not doing a whole lot of healing, right? At least for those first, like, turn 1, 2, 3, your main focus isn't actually healing, and you're not going to get the combos that you want until much, much later in the game. Which is where this card becomes really powerful. Also, I didn't flip this around correctly. Hopefully you know what cards I'm talking about, of course. Holy Champion is the Light Warden effect on a much more mid-game body. It's already really strong just by being a 3/5. Obviously, if you're 5 health, that's really strong, and you have at least 3 attack, that's really strong because it means you stand up to Piloted Treader, right? The important thing about this is that it can be played on turn 4 and just fight the aggro, right? It doesn't have to be the crazy combo wombo that wins the game, but it can be the win condition, which is why I think this guy is crazy, crazy strong. I don't know if I'll play him because I personally don't care too much about the Priest and like what deck is the most efficient, what's the most powerful. Like, I think I have a Grim Patron deck here. Yeah, I do, but I'm awful at Patron. I play it because it's funny, right? Like, I'm not trying too hard to go for the Mech Mage and the Tempo Mage and all this jazz. So I don't know if I'll personally be playing it, but certainly Priest will be happy because that's a crazy good card. King's Defender. This is an interesting card. So think of the taunt mechanic, right? So far, it's kind of only being used in the fact that it's a useful ability. The ability to force people to focus on one minion is really powerful. In fact, that's what most hunters have silences for. You know, it's a really powerful effect, but we don't have any sort of synergy with it yet. Now, is this the card to push taunt minions? I don't know. It's weird. So on one hand, this is like, a lot of people have been crying that it's a worse Fiery War Axe. I actually think it's really, really strong because durability is valued pretty highly in Hearthstone. At least it's valued higher than attack, I understand that much. And so, having a 3/3 for 3, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad card, per se. I mean, it's better than the Stormforged axe, sure. And even if you play this as a 3-2, it probably deals with enough aggro. The thing is, Warrior already has so many good weapons, right? Maybe not for 3 mana necessarily. In fact, I think they have the worst weapon in the game for 3 mana. We'll see. It's interesting that they're putting in synergies with Taunt. Taunts have always been a really interesting effect, and I'm glad they're trying to work more with it, Be fun to mess around with. Don't know how strong it'll be. Probably good against aggro, at least. Argent Horse Rider. So, what did I say about this card? Does 2 damage, and I don't really like it. It has a cool effect, and it actually does deal with kind of aggro. But do you think of any good 2 mana card? Unstable, at least ones that are played like Unstable Ghoul, Armor Smith, Shielded Minibot. Like any 2 mana card that I can think of deals with this pretty effectively, outside of Knife Juggler, right? Heck, there are like zombie chows and stuff that deal with this card effectively at 1 mana. So, I don't know, it is an active play, which is nice, but there's so many other cards I'd rather play at 3 mana. It is a powerful card. It's really nice if you're like pretty much a new player. You have to buy a bunch of the new cards and you're just getting a bunch of commons, and at least you have something to play, right? And it's good that they keep having decent 3-drops, but this one I'm just sort of meh. I don't like it much. 2 damage isn't enough is the thing. Like, rushing out 3 damage on Wolf Rider might even be a little bit better than rushing out 2 damage, because 2 damage just doesn't do anything. Oh no, this is different now. Before it was like on the same row, but okay. We're going to talk about Fiora Lightbane and Idis Darkbane. OP. So previously, via different card design, cough cough Dr. Boom, we know that it's okay for some cards to be way above the power curve, and for it to not necessarily tip the scale in any favor. I have the sneaking suspicion that these cards are specifically made to make 30 Legendaries decks viable again. And that's important because 30 Legendary decks are fun, and they like enabling fun game modes. These guys are kind of hard to activate, which is important. However, they have insane effects. Like, you have to understand, these cards are insane. They're incredibly powerful. In fact, I would argue they were slightly overpowered. Definitely Fiora Lightbane's one that I really want. I've had Buff Paladin forever. Like, that's just been a deck I play all the time. And it's gonna be fun to mess around with Fiora Lightbane. Looking at these guys, right? 3-4 base stats pretty good. You have to target them with a spell, which again is not actually that easy. You might think even in Priest it'd be like, oh, this could be really powerful. Thing about that is that Priest can only run so many cards that target your minion. You really need minions that get board control first. That's why these cards are really powerful, because they can develop board fairly early on, and then like get targeted by powerful shields and whatever, and become really amazing. Ultimately, I am slightly worried that we're just going to see them in all decks everywhere, like in a Dr. Boom-ish type of way, just because they're really good on their own. Like, you target one of these with the spare part, hey, the value is off the charts, right? But I would argue that they're allowed to be kind of insane, because there are cards before that have been completely insane, and the game hasn't been necessarily unbalanced. They're really powerful, and it scares me a little, but what are you going to do, right? They're definitely going to be a lot of fun. The Lightbane and this girl Darkbane. Silent Knight, ooh, this one's an exciting one. Selsun Divine Shield, the stats are kind of meh, but I don't think people will be playing this card necessarily for the stats. They want to play this card because they want a minion with Divine Shield that they can buff and then make use of the Divine Shield. Like, have you ever played Shielded Minibot in that aggressive Paladin deck, and then had its shield be popped before you could pop your Blessing of Kings on it? Like, this card is specifically something you play to avoid that happening. And it's fun. It's like, hey, I want to grow something insane, do some insane combo wombo, it's actually really good of Blizzard to put a card like this in there that can pretty much just survive, because it's extremely telegraphed when someone's trying to kill you using that type of strategy, right? Like they'll Blessing of Kings, and then they'll Blessing of Might, and then they'll be at like 1 mana or 2 mana, so they'll just guy, right? And then next turn, oh man, this guy's going to kill me next turn. I need to do something now. And so being able to having the telegraph is kind of a weakness, especially when we already have so many cards that are just really aggressive and do it so much faster. So Silent Night is kind of a slow deck. It's kind of a combo card. It fills in a weird niche of like, I want to survive and make use of a buff specifically. Again, stats are meh, but I think it's a really powerful card. I'm interested to see what uses it'll have when people get their hands on it. It'll be exciting. Spellslinger. Oh man, OP, OP, OP. So, straight off the bat, anyone who's played Mage, anyone who's looked at Mage cards, knows that they have a card called Flamewaker. Flamewaker, I don't know if you know this, but I believe Flamewaker is one of the stupidest cards in the game. Like, if you've ever had 2 Knife Jugglers on the board, you realize how powerful that effect of like 2 random damage that you can activate is. And Flamewaker is a fairly easy to activate effect, right? It's not like the Fiora Lightbane, where you have to target the minion, specifically that minion, with a spell. It's play a spell, get a Mega Knife Juggler effect, which is stupidly powerful, especially when you're combining it with cheap stuff like Mirror Image, right? So Spellslinger, it's a base value 3/4, and it adds a random spell to each player's hand, which favors the Mage, which, by the way, class cards is... You're going to be playing this in Mage, right? This card's insane. Like, straight up, it's insane. But I really, really like it because it's fun, right? Like, Blizzard's been doing this thing for a while where, hey, we're going to make cards that seem overpowered, but they're also really fun, like Piloted Treader. Piloted Treader basically means every single 4-drop ever needs to have more than 4 health to be good, unless they're in Druid, right? Or they're in Priest, or, warriors have like really good weapons for dealing with Piloted Treader. But the thing is, Piloted Treader is such a stupid powerful card. On average, it's like basically a 4-mana 6/6, right? So in comparing Piloted Shredder to any other 4-drop, Piloted Shredder wins, but Piloted Shredder is random. You might get Captain's Parrot, you might get Explosive Sheep, you might get Vitality Totem, you might get Doomsayer. There's probably like a dozen or so cards that you really don't want to get out of Piloted Shredder. And if you do get them, they really screw you over. And so that makes Piloted Shredder a really inconsistent card, which is something Spellslinger, I think, is going to suffer as well. I think it's going to see play because it's ridiculously strong in like a Tempo Mage deck, or even a deck that like makes use of spells, like anything with spell activators. Maybe even with some of the OP 3/4 legendaries, right? We'll probably play this deck. However, I don't think it's overpowered because it's random. Eventually, sometimes your opponent's going to get the Flame Strike and you're going to get Mirror Image, sometime. And you might want Mirror Image until you play into Flame Strike, which is always the fun part, right? It's a fun card, and I like it because it keeps the random theme of Hearthstone. It keeps it fun, fresh, weird, wacky, and that's what we all love it for, right? Even though it's like, I'm looking at, wow, my mouse wasn't showing at all. Oh no, I shifted the thing. Oh no, panic. Oh sweet, it goes back there, okay. Even though I think it's insanely overpowered and mages are gonna really, really suck really soon, at least they have their crazy good cards are fun, Ancient Watchman. By the way, I'm gonna talk about the new 3 cards last. Just to make it easier for me to put the annotations and stuff. Argent Watchman, arguably the most interesting card out of this set, but also arguably the most hated card. Oh my god. Every review of this card I've seen has been like, it needs to be much, much better. And I don't necessarily disagree. It could be easily like 3-4, 4-4. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they made this like a 4-3 or even a 4-4, right? But the thing my mouse is showing, right? The thing about this Inspire effect, in case you've not read it, you've got your back turned away, you're playing Bastion or something. Argent Watchman is the can't attack. Inspire can attack as normal this turn. 2 mana, 2/4, which has its power, but obviously it's not great. There's already plenty of good cards that deal 2 damage that are functionally a 2/4 in a lot of situations, right? There's a lot more cards that can get a lot of value. If you're using something with can't attack, why not use Argent Watchman, because that's a much bigger stat boost for the issue. Like even in Inspire decks, this kind of makes you want the hero power, because then your hero power is like hero power and deal 2 damage to something, but it's deal 2 damage to something you set up last turn. It's really slow, and it's just kind of not ideal in the early game or even the late game. The best I can say for this card is that it could be really strong in the mid game where people are trying to drop like 12 creatures at once. They're trying to implosion, and you're trying to get rid of them with your hero power. You have Inspire minions, you have your Lowly Squire, you have your Sarad Nexus Champion, and you're actually hero powering to like get value from those cards. It's a nice bonus, and it's be a really efficient minion in a game where you're using your hero power every other turn. Otherwise, it's not likely. And we need more things like the Savage Combatant, I believe his name was. Yeah, we need more guys like this. We need more guys like Nexus for Argent Watchman to really be good, in my opinion. Granted, I could see this working in Druid actually, because Druid uses a hero power a lot, which is interesting. We'll see. I might actually experiment with this guy a little. I'm not expecting much, but it could be fun. Could be fun. Lane Juggler. Okay, so this is the last of the cards I originally reviewed. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy. First off, 2/3 is better than a 3/2 for reasons I've been mentioning over and over. Not necessarily over and over, but even though it's like easy to deal 2 damage, because it's easy to deal 2 damage, having a 2 health minion and a 3 health minion is like a really big difference, especially on turn 2. Where basically you have to expend like a Frostbolt or like a Dark Bomb to get rid of this guy, right? Whereas you could previously kill it with Zombie Chow. So that's always fun. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. That means you can hit your opponent's face, which kind of makes it bad in a weird way. And I think that's why people have sort of been like meh about this card, and I don't blame them. The thing about deal 1 damage to a random enemy is that if it hits face, it basically did nothing. You basically just played like a vanilla 2/3 that did nothing. And generally that's not what you want. You want crazy cards that are OP. You want things like Knife Juggler where you can implosion, and basically Knife Juggler did 7 damage if someone kills it with like a Doom Guard or something, you know? That's the ideal situation for 2-drops. Is that they can just function as their base 2/3, but they're also insane. But they're usable, like Ooze, Unstable Ghoul, Ect. The Flame Juggler is weird because it doesn't fit into any sort of niche. Its effect isn't very strong. It's just kind of I'm wacky and random, which is fun, sure. I assume they printed this card because they wanted to add more random effects. Because from all of the cards they've released, right, a lot of them have been focusing on this new Inspire effect. Some of them have been like Silent Night, where they fill a very specific niche. Others have just been interesting Inspire effects. Others have been just like, we're trying to counter aggro, we're trying to make Rogue's hero power useful, Flame Lance, God knows what's going on with that. And so looking at all of that, you kind of don't want the game to be steered too far away from where it currently is now. And the reason for that is because of new players. When a new player comes to play Hearthstone, they need to be able to compete with the 2/3s and the shielded mini-bots and everything that's already been released previously. And so you need to have 2-mana cards so that they're not forced to play their 2/1/1/1 Murloc cards. if you guys don't know, the basic cards you get when you first make a Hearthstone account aren't great. In fact, I would argue they're very late game oriented because you have a lot more 6 and 7 mana cards than like 2 mana, 3 mana cards. You have like Bloodfen Raptor is like one of the ones you get at 2 mana. I know you don't get any 1 mana minions. I think you might get Elven Archer, I'm not sure. But basically, the minions you get from the basic set are kind of garbage. And so if you're buying a lot of packs, you need to be getting things that are at least better than the basic deck that you can play in whatever deck you're playing at rank 20. And so it's good that they're having cards like Flame Juggler out. Yeah, that's my take on it. Now for the interesting cards. Master of Ceremonies. Battlecry, if you have a minion with spell damage, gain +2/+2. It's exciting because it's a 4/2 that becomes a 6/4. If your Cobalt Geomancer survives, this might bring back like the Spell Power Rogue deck, sort of the control decks with spell power in them. There was like Malygos decks that float around a bunch, but those don't really use Cobalt Geomancer in any sort of logical way. It's a fun card. It might enable a new type. I really like it. I really want to mess with it. I also noticed that this video is getting really, really long, so I'm going to try and rush, but really cool. I like the art, actually. The art's kind of nice. Really want to mess with it. Darnassus Aspirant. It's a weird card. I don't know what exactly is the logic behind it. Gain an empty mana crystal. Yay, wild growth. That's kind of OP. This minion is destroyed. Destroy a mana crystal. The problem, I don't think this will replace wild growth, and the reason why is because if you lose the mana crystal, if you don't have that effect permanently, that's kind of a big deal because the wild growth really takes into effect when they're playing 4 mana cards and you're playing 5 mana cards, right? When you're playing your Sledge Belcher and they're playing Piloted Sky Golem, that's when the mana really matters, not on turn 2. And if this just dies on turn 2 and trading with a Knife Juggler, or, you know, friggin' Tempo Mage comes out with some nonsense and it just dies for free off Arcane Shots and Flame Juggler, well, you're going to be kind of sad that you took out your wild growth, because if that was a wild growth, you'd be in a much, much better position. So I'm not sure where this card's supposed to fit. It is good that they have early game for Druid now, and it's a very unique type of early game. I expect like high-end players to experiment with it and find that having it destroyed is just way too brutal. But it's interesting, it's cool. Again, nice art. I like it. Wrathguard. Oh god. Another bloody early game demon. Am I the only one who like really doesn't like the demon zoo aspects? Because Void Caller is already stupid OP. And I'm gonna be honest, I think this card is crazy strong. It's super aggressive, right? Like, it trades into 3 mana cards. Like, you play your Fiora Lightbane, it trades with Wrathguard. By the way, Wrathguard is a 2 mana 4/3. Whenever this minion takes damage, also deal that amount of damage to your hero. Anyone who's been playing Hearthstone, unless you're playing versus a hunter, never gonna be like an issue. Like, if you lost the game and you played Wrathguard, it's gonna be in spite of Wrathguard, not because of it. It's a stupid strong 2 mana minion, and as people like me will be prioritizing getting 3 health and 2 attack over the 3 attack and 2 health, Wrathguard's gonna be like a serious issue to deal with in the future. Like, I fully expect it to be like in every Warlock deck really, really quickly as soon as this expansion is released. So that'll be fun. Get your dark bombs, get your fiery wind axes. It's gonna be scary, dude. That's like a really strong zoo card. Oh well. That's my review of part 2. Expect more in the future. Exciting stuff. Off the top of my head, I really want to build a paladin deck with Silent Knight, and like, where is it? Fiora Lightbane, and maybe a druid deck with the Argent Watchman to see if I can make use of it. I do think the Argent Watchman isn't like the worst card in the world, like everyone's been talking about it. Actually, wait, did I talk about? Oh, I missed Demon Fuse. Oh, I don't like it because it doesn't do enough. like +3/+3. That's great. Demons are really good at making creatures big, but they already have plenty of other ways to make creatures big, and they already have like way too many zoo aspects. It could be good in zoo where you're trying to play for tempo, but then you just get out tempoed because your opponent's playing Sludge Belcher when you're playing, smaller minions. So that's gonna suck. I don't expect to see any play. Thank you all for watching. Leave your comments down below. Which card do you like? What card do you not like? Any discussion, any disagreements you have? I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me with Darnassus Aspirant, but I just don't think it's very good. Or I don't think it's good enough per se. It's baseline, it's okay. We'll see. Thank you all for watching. My name's Nujum. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!